All right, let's talk about something called the Golem Effect. It's this hidden force, really a vicious cycle that's all about low expectations. And you'll see it everywhere in classrooms, at the office, maybe even at home, shaping who succeeds and who fails.
Have you ever looked at someone and thought, man, they have so much potential, but for whatever reason, they just underperform? It's like they can never quite get there. It's a super frustrating puzzle, right? Well, it turns out psychology has a pretty powerful explanation for this.
And that explanation, it's the Golem effect. You might have heard of its opposite, the Pygmalion effect, where high expectations lead to high performance. Well, this is its dark twin. It's a negative, self-fulfilling prophecy. The idea is simple. When you expect less from people, that is exactly what you tend to get. And it's not magic. It's a very real and honestly a really damaging cycle. So the big question is, how does this even happen? How does a simple thought in one person's head turn into someone else's reality? Well, it's actually a pretty clear step-by-step process. Let's break down exactly how this vicious cycle works. Okay, so here's the breakdown. First, it all starts with someone in charge, a boss, a teacher, who forms a low expectation. Then, the person on the receiving end, they pick up on that. They start to internalize that doubt, and their own confidence just takes a nosedive. I mean, think about it. Why would you try your hardest if you feel like everyone expects you to fail anyway? So naturally, you put in less effort. And what happens next is totally predictable. Your performance drops. And the worst part? That poor performance just confirms the original low expectation in the leader's mind. The cycle is complete. And one of the first places we see this cycle kick in, and where it can be just devastating, is in the classroom. This is where a kid's idea of who they are is really taking shape. So let's look at how this plays out with students. So imagine this. A teacher, maybe without even realizing it, decides a student is just not a math person. That little belief changes everything. They start calling on that kid less. They give them the easier assignments. They don't offer as much encouragement. And the child, they learn a really powerful lesson, but it's the wrong one. They start to think, well, nobody expects me to get this right, so why even try? They just check out, and of course, their performance gets worse. Let's make this super concrete. Let's say a student is struggling just a little bit with math. If their teacher looks at them and thinks, they're a lost cause, what happens? They're not going to get that extra support. They're not going to get that one tricky problem that might actually spark their interest. Instead, the student starts to feel incapable. Their anxiety around math goes through the roof, and their scores drop. And just like that, the teacher's initial bias has become reality. But this isn't just something that happens to kids in school. Oh no, the Golem effect is alive and well in the workplace too. It's the exact same cycle, just in a different setting. Seriously, the pattern is exactly the same. A manager decides an employee isn't leadership material, or maybe they're just a bit slow. Suddenly, that employee gets passed over for the cool, challenging projects. They don't get invited to important trainings. The feedback they get is minimal, if they get any at all. I mean, is it really any surprise that their motivation just tanks and their performance suffers? Okay, here's a workplace example for you. A new hire is just trying to get their footing, right? They're a little shaky. If their manager just writes them off as slow, they're probably going to stop investing any real time in them. They'll just get the easy, boring tasks and forget about any real mentorship. So this new employee who's getting zero support and zero opportunity to grow, of course they're going to underperform. And it just proves what the manager thought from the very beginning. When you lay it all out like that, it sounds completely avoidable, doesn't it? So why does this keep happening? Well, the answer is deep in our psychology, in how our brains are literally wired to pick up on social cues, especially from people in charge. Let's dive into the why behind all of this. So, at its very core, what's happening here is a transfer of belief. It starts out as just an idea in someone else's mind. That's the external expectation. But through their actions, their tone of voice, even the projects they assign, that belief gets communicated. And the person on the other end, they start to soak it up until that external idea becomes their own internal belief about themselves. And this internal process is really the key to the whole thing. We're social animals. We build our sense of who we are based on the feedback we get from people around us, especially from leaders. So when their expectation of us is low, it's like a direct hit to our self-efficacy. That's our fundamental belief that we can do it. And once that's damaged, it's just a chain reaction. Confidence goes down, effort goes down, and the bad results just lock in that negative story. Look, getting a handle on this cycle isn't just some interesting psychology trivia. It has huge real-world implications for how we manage people, how we teach our kids, and just how we interact with each other.
So, what are we supposed to do with all this? What's the main takeaway? I think this quote really nails it. It says, low expectations can undermine growth. See, the Golem effect isn't just about messing up on one test or one work project. It's so much bigger than that. It's about crushing someone's potential for growth. It's like we're putting a ceiling on what they can achieve, and they might never even realize they can break through it. And that really brings us to the final, most important question, a question for all of us. Whether you're a parent, a boss, a teacher, or just a friend, our expectations are powerful. They're not just passive thoughts, they're an active force. So we really have to ask ourselves, are my expectations lifting people up, or are they holding them back? Whose potential are you limiting? Maybe without even realizing it.